are you, everybody? Uh, this is my first tutorial of Google SketchUp. I'm using Google Sketch 7 professional version, but the free version as well is pretty much the same as this one, so feel free to follow along with any version you have of SketchUp. Should work. In this tutorial, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the basics of what each one of these tools pretty much does and means. So let's go ahead and get started. You have the select tool, which is a shortcut on it in the keyboard would be the spacebar. And the select tool pretty much just selects lines and faces and objects. Then you have the line tool. That's where you get started, pretty much building things. And the line tool is the L key on your keyboard. A rectangle, I think you all know what a rectangle does. It builds a rectangle. That's the R key on the keyboard. The circle builds a circle, and that's the C key. And there you have an arc, which you can do quite a lot of things with an arc. You can definitely be a bit creative with that. But by default, it's pretty much a half a circle, and that's the A key on your keyboard. You really can't click that by default, so we'll go and skip that one. But that's, as you can see, that's to make a component. And the reason you can't click it is because you gotta have sort of object selected to make a component. Let's see if you could do this. No, you can't because that's already a component. What a component is a set of it could be a set of lines that you want to make them together, so you don't have to click each individual line if you're gonna ever have to move it or rotate it, and so it makes life a lot easier by making a component. But that's a little more advanced. We'll get into that later. Then you have the erase tool. Pretty simple. It's the E key on the keyboard, and it's used as an eraser to erase pretty much anything you want. And let's go ahead and erase this guy that comes by default whenever you open a new SketchUp file, and pretty much he's there, just to give you the sense of a human scale whenever you're building something, just to see how big or how small it looks like next to a human being. Let's erase him. I usually don't use the eraser. I use the delete key on the keyboard, a lot easier. Then you have the tape measure tool. Very good, just for measuring. Whenever you're not sure how much a line measures, any object measures, you can go ahead and measure them with the tool. That's the T key on your keyboard. The paint bucket is next. That's like your materials. That's the B key on your keyboard. Very important. Next, when you're making something three-dimensional, to extrude a base, you're going to use the push-pull command, and push-pull tool actually, and that's the P key on your keyboard. The move copy one is the M key on your keyboard to move, and to copy, it's control on your keyboard holding it, and you hold the move tool at the same time, and you can copy, make a duplicate of an object that you already have, or a line, whatever it may be. Rotate key is, it rotates something. You can rotate at exactly a certain amount of degrees, 90, 180. If you want to flip it backwards, very important tool to use. That's the Q key on your keyboard. Next is the offset key, where you can offset something by a certain amount of inches or feet. The orbit key is the O key on your keyboard, and it's also the middle button in your mouse, which is pretty much the way I use it the most. That's to orbit around you're building, something you're always going to use, as well as the next key, which is the pan key, also the H key on your keyboard. And another way to use it is if you have another tool selected, you can go ahead and hit shift and the middle button, and you're going to go ahead and get the pan tool. Then you you have the zoom, which is Z on the keyboard. And zoom extents is whenever you're, say, in the middle of an object or you kind of get lost in it, which can happen when you're building something quite big, and you hit zoom extents, it pretty much shows you everything that you've built. So, you know, you don't get lost in your model. So those are the default keys, and I'll leave it at that for this tutorial, and thank you for watching.